Alright, I said I would not do a video of this because I can barely get it done without making a mess of it on my own anyway, but I thought this is not such a hard job. So a little carbon fibery, gonna wrap these corners here. Now normally, this is going to be the back of a seat, so these are not going to get a whole lot of stress. So I am just going to wrap them with 24K carbon fiber tow, and I'm not going to give them much more reinforcement than that. If this were the bottom or a join that had a little bit more stress on it, I would do two things. I would wrap them second. Underneath, I would use this stuff, which is pretty fun. It's a little bit like a finger trap. You can see it getting bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller. And it's a sleeve. You can slide it on, dope it up, and get a little bit of omnidirectional strength. But since this is just the top of the seat, it's not really going to get any cranking on it at all. I think it's going to be just fine with a wrap. So we're going to get a pair of gloves. They're out here in the garage where they do double duty for clearing the dog's anal glands. It's always a great day when you have to take your dog out to dinner, take them back to the garage, put some KY on your finger, shove it up their ass, and fix up their anal glands. Stinks like hell. So I only am going to be mixing a very small amount of epoxy here, and I only am going to do one side at a time probably, because I don't like being rushed and I don't like fighting a pot of epoxy that is about to start setting on me. It's cool in the garage, but I still prefer when I am not in a rush. So cup weighs 2 grams, we'll zero, and this doesn't always catch with so little epoxy going in. Sometimes I have to kind of reset the thing. I'm just going to make about 9 grams of epoxy. So 6 and 3. Well, 3 to 1, right? What am I forgetting already? 3 to 1. So that would be 6 and 2, right? Let's make sure let's weigh a cup here and make sure. 0. Huh, you've got 7. All right, we'll see if we can get everything done. We'll make 9. We'll do 9 and 3 for 12. Okay. 9 epoxy through hardener. Why does it say 9 now? What the heck, man? Thing is... Oy. Well, I'll go a little heavy on the hardener. It might speed it up a little, but better than leaving it unhardened. Or, you know what? Smarter yet. Trash it. Start again so we get the right mix. Zero. All right, darn it. Go. This is not... This is a lousy pump here. All right. That's probably 5. 6. I'm gonna go 9 and 3 for 12. That way you can do it all at once. If I don't have the time, I'll just make some more. 10. All right, we'll do 10 and just a tiny bit more than 10. 11, 12, 13. All right. That is 3 to 1. The stick is usable again, so of course apparently the motto when you're an epoxy person is mix it up as much as you think you need to, and then mix it some more. So this is the best part of the video, I'm sure. End up speeding up some of this. Alright. It's pretty good. Move my little slop surface over here. I use red electrical tape as my compression, and it also holds down my ends of my toe that I'm working with. So we're going to need at least 4 of these to start here. Make a couple of extra. And I quit using black and I only use red now because the carbon fiber is black, and it's when you've got it kind of mixed up and hardened, it's a lot easier to tell when you're grinding away to free something up what's carbon fiber and what's tape when the tape is red. So cheap brushes, we'll clear this one off a little bit and set it aside. I'm that cheap, I reuse whatever I can. Alright, we'll get a little bit brush, and we'll pre-dope one of these slots. So we will start here. You can see I sanded this. I didn't wipe it with alcohol here because I had actually given it a pretty good wash, clear up off the sanding, so we're good. I'm going to give it a stick. Of course, I probably should have stuck my first piece of tape on before I did this. Huh? The tape's not going to stick so well to that epoxy. We'll just start a little further away. Alright. So, leave my brush there so I don't mess it up. Alright. Get our 24K out. Almost out on this roll. So, what I do is grab it and tape on, and then figure out where I'm going to start and just taper down. So we're going to start about here. Oops, there we go. The tape will hang on to the toe, and then it really is a matter of just, I'm going to bring this in here and kind of start a little closer in, and then maybe we'll go back out. And then it is just wrapping and doping occasionally when you get enough carbon fiber string on there. And this just hardens up into a big thick carbon fiber lug, and pretty much just glues those tubes into place as if you had put a nice big steel lug and brazed it, but with a lot easier sanding and grinding. So since I'm going to wrap this in electrical tape afterwards, I'm not afraid of putting a little bit too much epoxy on, because when you wrap this, especially this simple tube shape with electrical tape tight, and then you poke weep holes in it with a needle, the excess epoxy comes weeping up pretty well. So one of the things you need to be careful of when you're doing this, since you just have a not so strong tacked glue joint in the corners, is that when you're kind of trying to reef on this to keep things tight, that you don't actually stress one of these joints too much, because they're really not so strong right now. They are just tacked. So especially when you're wrapping it later, you tend to want to like stick the thing into your, like hold it against your, press it against your chest to get some leverage. I haven't done that and broken anything, but I found myself almost doing it once and said to myself, don't be an idiot. So we're just about done with this one. Of course, you can always put a little bit more on than you need. More on it. That's me. And sand it away later to make it smooth. So, and this toe is not too expensive, so I may go a little bit with that route. But I'm going to pay a little more attention to this outside corner. It tends to, you can see it wants to split there. It tends to want to be thin there. And sometimes then when I'm sanding through, I get back down into the tack JB weld, which probably isn't a big deal. In fact, I'm fairly certain it isn't for this particular point, which doesn't get a ton of stress, because I've reefed on these things once they're cured. And these are really strong joins. So we're just about done. I'm just going to go back and tape this off, and then we'll start one of the next. We'll move on to the next one. So I just come back out here. Right. Grab a handy piece of tape. Sticks to your gloves like crazy and makes your life difficult, but get over there, you. Okay. Holds it down in place, and here we got a little of this stuff's escaping a little bit, so I'm just going to kind of motion around. Sorry if I'm not focusing on the workpiece every time. I'm trying to, but I have my cheaters on because I can't see anything, and I have to look out of the bottom of the glasses, and then I lift up my head, and the video's not showing stuff. So there's one part of the joint. Which way do I want to wipe this? Let's do it like this. Piece of tape, piece of toe, sticking like crazy to my gloves. Let's do this. Okay, they're taped on, and we are ready to roll, right? Okay, so bring her in, and more of the spinning wrapping game. Look at my toe is kind of getting hairy and falling off the edge of my spool there. It's kind of annoying. So if it gets too spread out, I kind of give it a twist and bring it back in. Come on. Carbon fiber. I need to get someone to send me the stuff on a better spool. And it's about time to put some epoxy on. A little bit on this. Let it kind of... Epoxy, even when it starts to feel a little bit thick, you think, oh, now it's starting to set up. It actually flows for quite a while, especially if it gets some pressure on it. So I will probably make a new pot before we do the other side, because it's just nicer not to have the stress of trying to race the setup on the epoxy. So I like to think I'm not doing things so differently from Calfee here. Of course, they all do like custom-made lugs now. They don't do the hand wrapping so much over there anymore. This is how they started. Now a couple more in the middle. What's going on with this? Gotta get this off of here and then gotta re-spool it in the middle here. Alright, a little bit more epoxy, and then we'll kind of finish up this side. And we probably have plenty of time to do the other side. Well, we've got to do the backwards wrap electrical tape and the poking with holes. So let's just stick with my original plan. All right. How's this looking here, thickness-wise? I think that's pretty good. And yeah, that looks pretty good. Well, spin this to here. Piece of tape. Taper down. We're good. All right, then I'm going to, like I said, I'm not afraid to put a little bit of extra on, because the excess will squeeze out once we get our compression wrapping on here in a second. So all right, now the compression wrapping is pretty simple. I just start there, make a loop, sticky side in, then just flip, get a good pull, you can start, and then you can just start. And there I just about pressed it against my chest. And there you can see we're getting some compression. What will happen is the epoxy will start dripping off even before we get holes in it. So I'm going to go and do this over the garbage can here. And now that sticky side out sticks to your gloves like crazy. taking off the glove here because my fingers don't stick as much to the tape as my gloves. Okay, there we go. I'm getting things like this. Let's kind of get that like that. You don't have to get all the compression on the first pass. You can make another pass, especially if you do what I did and just order a bunch of cheap electrical tape, like $10 for 8 rolls. You can use as much of it as you need to for this. You can see some of it's starting to escape. It wants to come out already, which means I'm getting epoxy on my hands now. It's all right. We'll clean it off with a little acetone and be good to go. Smell the epoxy now. I'm going to grab it here. I'm going to grab a paper towel to be holding on to this stuff with so that if I do get epoxy on my hand like that, I'm not putting it everywhere. Alright. And I'm grabbing this one because this is the piece I'm cranking on now, so I don't want to be holding on to this and applying all sorts of pressure to a different section of the workpiece, because that, like I said, is a good way, I think, probably to break loose your joints. So I'm just going to start stabbing this now, and I'll go over it with some more tape even after we stab it up. But you're going to see epoxy start oozing out of these holes. Right away. And when it's not oozing out, it means I need to put a little more pressure, right? Okay, that's a good start. Now I'm gonna go back and do another layer of tape. Sticky side out still, yeah, okay. And then I'll be poking more holes in it, right? And this doesn't always give the smoothest finish, right? You can see the lumps. But we will sand most of that out, and it'll be plenty strong. And that's how we'll do it. And in the absence of vacuum bagging equipment and all of that, really what else are you going to do? So that's how I'm going to finish this, and I'll shut the camera off after I've done this, because the other side is just going to be more of the exact same thing. And one of the final things I often do after I've done this is I just wrap some paper towel around the electrical tape on the outside. And that way the excess epoxy that comes out kind of just goes into that. And then, so when I lay this down on the heating duct overnight to cure where it's nice and warm, I won't have a big bunch of puddles of epoxy. You can see I got extra pressure there because when I come through and stab it this time around, boom, it's springing a bunch more new leaks, right? See them all? So every bit of that comes out is the piece getting lighter and no less strong, because you only need as much epoxy as fits in the matrix of the sandwich with the carbon fiber. So any extra is just a waste. It's not offering anything in terms of strength. It's just weighing you down. And there we are. So that is how I do this, piece by piece. Do a little bit every night. In the morning, you get to wake up for a little surprise. So, what, 7 in the morning it was. It's about 12 hours later. This stuff is warm because it was on the heating duct all night, and it's cool here, so the heater's running. So this is the fun little morning surprise you get. You can see after I did both sides, I wrapped some paper towel around this, and then I even gave it another wrap in green cling wrap, the kind you get at, they have the big huge ones at the airport for wrapping suitcases. You can see here not enough epoxy came through actually there to make that paper towel go transparent, similar to what happens when you use fiberglass. So this is, it makes it a bit more of a pain to unwrap when you've got the paper towel there, because it does stiffen up. Cling wrap is good because the epoxy doesn't stick to it at all. You can see there that came right off. So cling wrap is good stuff to have, and when you do pieces that have more compound curves or concavities in them, you end up using cling wrap over foam. You put like a hunk of foam, and the cling wrap squishes the foam into those concavities, which you have to have lined with some kind of a release film, either a nylon fabric or some plastic release film. So you can see where that came through. This stuff is stuck pretty well to the paper towel, both because the tape was sticky side out and because we had epoxy come through. But once we get the ends of the electrical tape and start unwinding those, the paper towel will just rip right off because it's a bad reinforcement, so it's not strong. So the epoxy is brittle. Paper towel's not adding anything, and it'll just peel off. Oops. That's once we get going. Let's see how this feels. Dude, that is more than strong enough for the purpose of this particular piece. So let's see, this went this way. So start our unwrapping. And if you do your wrapping nice and carefully, so that you're using a single long line of tape rather than another, and stopping and starting, then it's a lot easier. So there it is, first corner, and you can see there, see a little bit of spot there where we had just a little epoxy puddle under there, but nice thin, and gosh, this stuff is stiff. Very strong reinforcement. Now, like I said, if this were going to be in a condition of some kind where it was going to get a lot of pushing in that direction or pulling in this direction, I would have put some unidirectional fiber here, or just wrapped this in some weave and a weave sleeve to give it some directional strength. But this just sits at the top of the seat, and there's going to be a cross brace nearby, so it's never going to get reefed on that way or that way. The only pressure it will ever really get is maybe if somebody hung a bag on here, a little bit of inward pressure, but that's almost nothing. And this is kind of like the arch, or an arch, like a stone arch. Technically, right? You barely even need mortar, because if all the pressure is in towards that, these are keystones. So the way we wrap that yesterday is good enough. Now let's see, is this the end? It is. So now we're in business for getting this side unwrapped. And this is my favorite part of doing this kind of work in the morning. You always get a fun little surprise and find out if you did a decent job or not. I think this seat is going to take more screwing around than the bike itself. There's just that, so many joints. There we are. The side's a little bit messier looking, and a couple of spots where I didn't wrap it quite as nicely. But I have enough material here to work with where I will just smooth that out with sanding, and that'll look good. So the next step will be just to use a rotary tool to kind of fix up these ends. So use a rotary tool with a polishing or a buffing or a sanding drum very gently here to get that to the point where you can peel off the tape. Although sometimes when you've wrapped it carefully like I have, you can sometimes pull this sort of out from under That's going to rip there. See, it's ripping. But it's easy enough to free that up by gently buffing off the layer of carbon fiber over it. There. And there, we got that one out actually. So we'll just buff that off, sand it in, and Bob will be your uncle.